That'd be the worst idea, right? Because the further that goes, the less credibility that person would have in their craft, correct? Sooner or later, you're like, it doesn't really look like you've worked out in the last year. So I don't know that I am wanting to get advice from that person, okay? Often, coaches in sports have a long list of experience, and that's what you would hope so, right? The professors that I had in college, the very few that I was like, oh, I want to learn from this person, were typically people that were not full-time professors. I still remember my money and banking professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and that guy was the man because he just came in to teach because he liked it, but he came from the professional business world and was still in it and had done exceptionally well and would come in to teach, and it was like, I want to learn from this guy. Steve Ricks. His lessons, his examples, they were all real world, they were all present, like in the real time. I remember being excited to go to the class, and it was like the only one I was excited to go to. And so when I think about your ability to lead, when you're selling Cutco, you're on fire. When you just had a 2K weekend, or you just sold a Siggy set or whatever else, man, the advice that you're giving to a new rep, they hear it differently. When you're like, oh yeah, I just sold this set 2 days ago, here's what I did. They're like, oh. It also, they, not only do they respond differently, their belief in the opportunities increase because you're getting the results right now as you're talking about. So, you will do a far greater job of your job coaching when you're selling Cutco. So this is like undeniable. This is such an important thing. And you've got to make sure that you understand this going in, that the two complement each other. And it's not supposed to be, now I get to teach, so therefore I don't sell. It's like, no, now my sales are that much more important. It does not mean that you need to be doing 20 appointments a week. That is not what we want you to do. Now, you may have a goal like that. I've had guns for hire, if you will, where it was like, that's your job. Burt Wicks, he spent a summer in my office, and there was a stretch there where every summer I had 1 AM, and their job was to blow the sales report up every single week. So it was like, Burt, your job is to sell $50,000 this summer, and I want you to take every rep on our team field train, and I want you to lead by example at every single phone jam. That's your job. So Burt did not run any interviews. He coached like 5 reps, but we were really strategic. It was like people had a wide open schedule, and you had to apply to coach with him, right? It was like, I'm not wasting Burt's time coaching. Like, Burt is on fire this summer. He's gonna sell 50K, and he's gonna bring people with. This is when we had like a behemoth office, and our staff was 7 deep, right? So he was the, you've got one job, which is to lead sales, lead from the front, and take a few people with you, okay? That's probably not your job. So Burt was doing more than 5 to 10 demos a week. Okay, this was before he was doing events and stuff. And so what's right for most assistant managers, it's just being active on the sales report every single week, and then going for it during push periods. So what I want you to do is I want you to start to think about your summer this way. I want you to break it up into 3 categories. SC2, SC1, and then regular week, right? SC2, SC1, regular week. This is how I want you to look at it. So what does this mean? SC2, that's our largest sales contest of the year. So your manager can show you what the sales reports are. There's gonna be prizes for this. So for SC2, for you, assistant managers, it's usually like 15K. I don't remember what it was last year. 15K gets you boat day or mayonnaise? Boat day, 20K gets you mayonnaise. So what this means, every assistant manager that sells 15K or more for SC2, you get to join Lake Minnetonka Boat Day on August 11th after Dream School. Anybody that sells 20K plus, not only do you get to go to Boat Day, but you also join for Manny's Steakhouse that night. So for those of you selling for SC2, those are 2 benchmarks that you can think of, right? Some of you might want a bigger number than that. Now, if you've never had a big sales week or a big sales contest, don't worry about it. If you just follow the coaching that we lay out for you for SC2, you can sell 15K, absolutely 100% confidence in you that you can do it. right? So I would tell you to pick at least 15K for that. Now, if you know, hey, I'm gone for half of it, I've already talked to my manager, maybe your goal is different than that. But go ahead and pencil something down. I'm not gonna hold you to it right now, but I want you to at least start thinking this through, and then you can have a follow-up conversation with your team, okay? SC1. Now, by the way, those of you that are like highly motivated and you look at yourself as a top 1% person, then your goal most likely for that first one's like 30K, okay? SC1. SC1, you're still really busy in the office. That's 2 weeks of June, and I mentioned before, June's like intensity time. We were just talking about this in the hallway with Brody out there at Trenton's corner of the block. The idea of what's a good amount for SC1? Assistant managers for SC1, when you sell 8K for the push, you qualify for Fogo de Chao, which is like Champions Night. We get in a limo bus, party bus thing, we go to Fogo de Chao downtown and back to the hotel, right? So 8K gets you that. If you want to go for 10K and beyond, I think that's awesome, right? And again, the more the better for you, because this is where you make a ton of money. You guys, your AM pay will range from here to here, right? So in other words, depending on what percentage you're at, well, if somebody's at 1% in the office and your office does 300K, that's $3,000. If your office does 400K, which is a big jump, it's 1,000 more for you. Well, to make 1,000 more in your personal sales, that's like 1 extra week. Does everybody follow that? So it's like, this is, if you're thinking about your finances, this is should be the bulk of your income when you're an assistant manager, okay? So for SC1, you could put down less than that. If you're a sales manager, maybe you're shooting for 6K or 4K or something like that. And then the last thing I want you to be thinking about is the other 13 weeks. There's 18 weeks to the summer. There's 3 here, there's 2 here, that's 5, there's 13 more. That doesn't mean that you're actively working for all 13, so maybe it's 10 for you. Maybe you have a vacation for 1 week or 2 weeks, maybe you have to go back early because you're an RA at school, right? So I don't know what the number is for you, but you should know the number, okay? So then the thought is, well, how much am I gonna try and do on a consistent basis throughout the summer? Is it $1,000 a week? Do I wanna be in the newsletter every week? Is it, hey, look, I'm just trying to do 5 demos a week, so it's 500 a week? There's gotta be some number that you're focused on. I, in my office, don't have an interest of having an assistant manager who's not selling. Okay, I wanna say that again. In my office, I don't have an interest of having somebody who's an assistant manager that's not selling. I know what their experience is gonna be. Sooner or later, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm not making enough money. It's like, yeah, because you're not selling. So I know where the outcome of that is gonna be, so I just avoid it to begin with. And you know, there was like 2013 to 2019, every single year we had a large staff, and every summer it was like, hey, your job is to sell. And every summer I would end up hiring at least 1 assistant manager, and it was typically in May week 5 to June week 2. It was somewhere in there. Why was it in there? Because I would set the stage and the expectation that everybody is selling, and then let's say somebody comes back from school May week 3 and they start and they don't really sell, there's kind of a slap on the wrist, like, hey, don't worry about it, like, you gotta get it going though. And it happens again, it's like, hey, come on, you need to jump back into your sales, and after they don't do it for 3 or 4 weeks, it's like, we talked about this, so you just can't be an AM, so I have to let you go. And what happened every single time that happened? The rest of the staff, they stood up a little taller. They were actually positively responding to that. Because you know this, when you're in a group project and somebody's like doing the opposite of what they should be doing, it's toxic for the whole team. When everybody's doing what they should, it feels great to be on that team and you want to contribute more. So I really want to, again, make sure that there's a standard in our teams and our divisions of this. So what does this look like? Well, again, let's say you're a really high achiever. This could be 20K for SC2, 8 to 10 for SC1, 10 to 20 for the rest of the summer. That's a 38 to 50K summer. Most of you are already at 30%. So what does that mean? That's a $10,000 to $20,000 income summer without your office pay. It's pretty awesome. I love how Elliot said, you guys have the same job as Burt Wicks, he's just been doing it long. He's just gotten more champs than us, that's all. Solid would be, hey, 15K for SC2, 5K SC1. Like, what if I were to go through these with you, like the veterans that have been in the room a while, 15K for an AM and SC2, not amazing. It's solid, right? But you'll go up on stage and you'll be like, there's a lot of people up here at the conference, right? Because that's what AMs do. 5K for SC1, that's $2,500 a week, 2 weeks in a row. It's not a lot. That's like you did 5 demos and somebody bought a Siggy set. Okay? And then 6K to 15K spread out over 10 weeks, you're not turning any heads with that. So in other words, this is nothing exceptional, but it's still a $21,000 to $35,000 summer. That's really solid.
Yep.
What's your income on that? Probably $7,000 to, $7,000 to like $13,000, somewhere in there. Plus your office pay. I have the stance, I have the belief that every AM should make 10K plus in the summer. That is not a hope, that is like a standard, but I think every system manager should make 10,000 plus in the summer. So I would love for you, if you're an assistant manager, to be thinking that way. Like, yeah, I should be making 10 grand this summer. And then a low flyer, or this could be a sales manager, right? In other words, they're working more hours in the office than most AMs. So maybe SC2, they're still doing a lot. So 10K, 3K for SC1, 4 to 8K the rest of the summer. That's still $17,000 to $21,000. And as an SM, we have SMs that do that. They sell $15,000 to $20,000 while being the sales manager. Emma, how much did you sell last summer?
30,000.
She sold 30 as a sales manager. Now she had a much bigger SC2, right? But that, again, that made her like that much better as a manager when she was able to go flex that muscle at a high level. Okay? So this leads to not just you being really financially healthy, it leads to really healthy teams. Because again, you're kind of like the on-the-field team captain, and when the team captain is working their ass off and is doing all the things that are expected of them, the rest of the team rises to the occasion, instead of just the coach barking orders. And so you have a real opportunity to impact. Here's my last slide, and I'm going to bring Tyler up. How to execute for assistant managers. Here's a little list of things to do before the summer starts and during the summer. Map out your entire summer. And I don't mean map it out just with like office calendar, that kind of stuff. Map it out sales week by sales week. Do you know how much you should be selling in May week 3, and May week 4, and May week 5? Right? I want you to feel good not selling Cutco if you're on vacation. Does everybody understand that statement? Like, in other words, I know that Caden from Minneapolis and Coulter are both leaving town in May for a 1-week trip. Cool. I got no problem with that. And I want them to feel great about not selling Cutco that week. I don't want them to feel guilty. How do we ensure that? By them doing what they should prior to the trip and knowing exactly what they're going to do when they get back. As somebody who likes to travel, I know that there's a right and a wrong way to travel. I'm going to get all my stuff done prior to travel so that when I'm traveling, I've got a clear conscience. I feel good. There's not this extra stress on my shoulders of like, oh, I didn't do this or I didn't do this. It's like, no, I'm feeling really good. And when I'm returning back, I'm not dreading it. I'm like, I'm excited because I don't have extra baggage that I left before I went on the trip. Does everybody follow that? So map out the entire summer. They shouldn't be wondering how much do I need to sell when I get back. They should just look at their plan and be like, oh, when I get back, I'm gonna have $1,000 a week or $500 a week or $2K a week. Now, this kind of ties to the third one, which is decide your weekly phoning function. But mapping out your entire summer, 1.0 would be your sales, 2.0 would be number of demos. I'm going to say that again. If you're truly doing this, it is, so again, using Caden and Coulter's example, they would say, here's how much I'm going to sell each week. And then with Chase, they would boil that down to be like, so that means this week I have to do 8 appointments. And you should know the whole summer in advance. There's a lot of confidence built by knowing the exact plan. The second thing is organize your leads and add to your leads. So right now, pre-summer, be organizing your leads. Do you know the shape of your current resources? Even if it's not good. Sometimes if it's not good, we avoid it. You've been there? Where if you don't have a lot on your list, you kind of just avoid it. You're like, oh, I don't know, it's like around, it's like if you ask somebody who's in debt how much they're in debt, they're like approximately blank. If you talk to somebody who's, wealthy and you ask them how, what's their net worth, they'll tell you the dollar. because they track it. So we tend to avoid things that we're not excited about, and we tend to really get in the weeds about things we're excited about. So know your current situation so that you can improve it. Decide your weekly phoning functions, number of calls, 50, 100, 200. So this is where, again, if I know the number of demos I need, I can then say this is how many calls I need to make each week. Therefore, this is how many phoning functions I should be at. You see how you break this down? So there's no motivation needed. It's not like, I gotta get myself to phone. It's like, well, no, it's in my schedule, it's not on my schedule. All I'm doing is showing up to work my schedule like a good employee. That's how I treat my schedule. I have so much detail on my schedule. All I need to do each day is show up to my schedule and be a great employee. That's what you want to do for yourself, is set up this awesome plan for the summer so that in the summer, there's no emotions. It's just, this is in my schedule, I gotta do it. If you were working landscaping for 15 bucks an hour, you'd show up and somebody would tell you what to do and you wouldn't give it two thoughts. You'd be like, oh, I gotta do this today. That's the way you want to operate at this job as well, but you have to spend the time ahead of the actual calendar. So number of calls, right? Is it 50, is it 75, is it 100? And then create accountability. So an accountability could be moments where you're getting calls with your manager, and I also want to encourage the peer-to-peer accountability. If I'm an AM, I want to find another AM, and I want to share my plan with them, and we should hold each other accountable. It's a lot easier when you have a partner doing the same thing you're trying to do. It doesn't need to be in your office, it could be across the division. During, you've got to execute your weekly call spots. Hey, one of the ways to do this, every time you're supposed to phone, ask one of your reps to phone with you. Easiest way for accountability. If I know I have to go to the gym, let me find somebody to go to the gym. Hey, you want to go to the gym tomorrow at 3? I'm less likely to bail. So, hey, I know I need to make calls here and here. I'm going to find some people on my personal team to phone with me so that I'm likely to phone because they're watching me. I'm setting the example for that. Right? That ties back into the conversation about your newsletter reps. How many you're trying to get the newsletter? They should be phoning with you at those functions. Field train 2 times a week. Take people with. If you want to get people on the newsletter, have them watch you. They'll go out and pop right after. Go all in for the pushes. That's a key thing for an AM sign on in the summer. And then the last one is take pride in being good at recommendations. Guys, when you're a sales rep, most sales reps suck at leads. It's just the way it is. Why? What's more exciting, being good at sales or being good at leads? Being good at sales. Absolutely. That's where you get the glory, that's where you get recognized, that's where you make money. So the leads are always a secondary thought, but one of the things that's so important is your ability to create a network. That is a lifelong skill. And if you want to be in leadership, it's teaching people how to do that. Well, you can't teach very confidently if you haven't done it yourself. So this summer, take pride in, I don't care if I'm average at selling, I'm great at leads. And if you can flip that, you will always have job security. So really focus on these things. I'm excited to see the sales leadership come from our AM ranks, and I can tell you when you sell a lot of Cutco this summer, your belief in your ability to lead next summer, in summer 27, goes through the roof. I'm excited to hear the wrap-up message from Mr.